Hey guys, it's Kayla and Mark Allen. We like to travel a lot, especially to Disney World. Follow along on our journey as we give you tips and tricks to help you create your own ever after.
Hello,
everybody. Welcome to the live. If you are new here, my name is Kayla.
And I'm Mark Allen.
And we talk about all things Disney here. We are specifically talking about Genie Plus today. We get questions all the time about how to use this system, how to get the most out of it.
Yep.
Is it really worth it? And some really common things that we hear all the time are that it's too complicated. It takes the fun out of our vacation. It's too hard to get the lightning lanes. It's too expensive. We are going to talk about some of these misconceptions today, bust those myths, and tell you how to use this system effectively so that it adds to your vacation instead of takes away from it.
Yeah. I think the number one thing that people say is that it's complicated. And yes, I will agree with you with a caveat is that it can be a very confusing system until you practice with it and really get to learn the ins and outs of the system.
But that's what we're going to talk about today, so that by the end of this live stream, you will know exactly how to use Genie Plus, hopefully, or at least you'll be well on your way to understanding it.
Right.
So that you'll feel like you at least know what's going on.
Yep.
So first off, let's talk about what is Genie Plus. If you are new to planning for your Disney trip, you are going to hear this word a lot and you're probably like, what the heck is Genie Plus? So let's break it down. First off, there is a few different features to Genie Plus. There is the free Genie, which we're not really going to talk a lot about today, but that's essentially more just kind of like it helps you plan your day.
Right.
It, like I said, it's free. It's all of this is in your My Disney Experience app, and you basically put in your preferences, and it'll kind of help guide you through your day based on that.
Yep.
Like I said, we're not really talking about that today, but just so you know, there's a free Genie, and then Genie Plus is the paid thing that we are talking about today. So Genie Plus is the paid add-on feature for over 40 attractions across all 4 theme parks. This offering is available both at Disney World and Disneyland, but today we are just talking about Disney World. It is $15 per person per day.
Yeah, and it can be purchased sort of in advance of when you actually get to the park. What I mean by that is, and this was a change that they rolled out from our old Genie Plus videos, you used to be able to buy it in advance of your trip, like well in advance, basically when you booked it. But now you can only book it, and we're going to talk about this in just a second, but you can really only book it like right before you actually get to the park, the day of, basically.
So it is no longer purchasable in advance. It is available for purchase day of your park day.
Right.
Then the third aspect of the whole Genie Plus system is individual attraction selections. So these are the top tier rides that are not included with Genie Plus. Currently, there is one in each park. We'll kind of expand upon this a little bit later, but basically just know that these rides are not included with Genie Plus. You have to purchase them separately. Like I said, we'll jump into that a little bit later.
Yeah, all of this we're going to deep dive into here in just a second. This is kind of a caveat of what this video is going to be about.
And if you have questions, we are doing like a Q&A type thing. We've collected some questions from you guys already, but leave those in the chat, but save them towards the end because we're going to answer them at the end of this video.
All of the Q&A stuff is going to be at the end. Basically, we're going to preface.
Basically, we're going to try and answer all your questions before we get to the Q&A, but then we will answer your questions when we get there.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about return times?
Yeah. So basically with these lightning lanes is that you essentially get a return time to, essentially it's a virtual queue, essentially is what the lightning lane is. And so when you get that return time, you're really not going to be able to select what time you want to go unless you're buying an individual attraction selection. That you can actually choose your time. But just a normal regular lightning lane, you're not going to be able to select what time. It's just kind of what you get.
So to expand upon that, so a return time is the time that you get to enter what's called the lightning lane or the line.
Yeah.
So your return time is the time that is your time to ride. That's the best way to think of that. So if you get a Genie Plus that says your return time is between 1 to 2 p.m., that means you can return to that ride from 1 to 2 p.m.
Right.
So your lightning lane is the fast lane. So this is your skip the line lane that you will go to. So Genie Plus is the system that you purchase. Lightning lane is the physical line that you are going through using your Genie Plus. And then the standby queue, this is another term that you're going to hear a lot, is the normal line that anybody can enter. So this is like typically going to be your longer line. This is not your skip the line. It's just your normal line that you get in to ride the attraction. And something too I wanted to say is that there is an excellent resource that Disney has just added to their website that really does. They're basically, I think it's 6 videos, and they show you step by step exactly how to use the Genie Plus system. So it's a little hard to do screen recordings on these live streams. So I'm not doing a ton of that today. We're going to do our best to like verbally explain.
But
to
the link for those videos are in the description box for this video. So definitely go and check those out. And we are going to talk about this again in just a second, but really familiarize yourself with the app, with Genie Plus. Watch those videos well in advance and really practice, because that's going to be the best way to learn the system and have it work well for you, is if you know what buttons do what and how to do certain things. So
yes, if you can take that 20 minutes, just get in your app and just start pushing buttons and figuring out where things are, you will be already way ahead of the game. So that's our first pro tip. So now let's talk about how to actually purchase or get Genie Plus. Whether you are staying on property or off property, you are more than welcome to purchase Genie Plus. It becomes available at midnight the day of your park day. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, you can purchase it that morning starting at 12:01 a.m. And you can do this on 2 different spots in your My Disney Experience account. The first is going to be on your main page. Honestly, Disney makes this pretty intuitive to find. They have just this big, I think it's like purple banner on your main page that's like, get started with Genie Plus. That's going to be your first way to go ahead and purchase it. The second way is if you go all the way to the right on the bottom where the 3 lines are in your My Disney Experience account, that takes you to basically all of like your settings and tabs and things. And there it will be a button that says like go to My Day or the tip board or whatever. You'll go in there and there will also be like little banners that say like get started with Genie Plus. So basically just look for those. That's how you purchase it.
Now, the other thing too, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but tax is not included in that price. So definitely, I guess it's not that it's obviously going to hopefully break your wallet, but do factor that in if you think, oh, $15, like that, it doesn't include tax. So it is going to be a little bit more. So do keep that in mind.
Yes. So now that you've purchased Genie Plus, how exactly does the system actually work? Do you want to tell them?
Sure. So as we mentioned, basically everything with Disney happens at 7 a.m. So at 7 a.m. is when you can book your first lightning lane, and also, if you want to, purchase your individual attraction selection.
If you are staying at a Disney resort.
Yes. So all that happens at 7 a.m. So definitely set reminders, set alarms, make sure you're up, because all the good stuff, all the good return times, the popular attractions, all those are going to go super quick. So you definitely want to make sure that you're on the app at 7 if you're wanting to partake in this service. If not, great. You don't have to do any of this. It's totally optional. But just know you're going to have to stand in the standby queue.
Yep.
So
if you're going to pay the money, just make sure that you're prepared so that you can actually get the most out of it.
Yep. So once you purchase Genie Plus and book that first lightning lane, you can book your next lightning lane either at 120 minutes or, which we're going to talk about that 120-minute rule here in just a second, but you can either purchase it after that or after you scan in to your first attraction, whichever comes first. So with the 120-minute rule, say you book Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom at 7 o'clock, and your return time for that is not until like 11 o'clock. Well, let's say in this scenario that Magic Kingdom opens at 9 o'clock. You can book your first or your second lightning lane 2 hours after that. So it is kind of confusing. Kayla's really good at explaining it. I know how to, I'm just really bad at explaining it.
So the best way to really think about this, and a lot of people get really caught up in the whole, like, when can I book my next one? This is so confusing. This is the question that you need to ask yourself. Have I just scanned into one of my lightning lanes? If the answer is yes, then you can go ahead and book your next one. If the answer is no, the next question you need to ask is, has it been 2 hours since I've booked my last lightning lane? If the answer is yes, then you can go ahead and book another one. That's honestly, that is the easiest thing. Yeah. That's the only thing that you really need to concern yourself is, have I just booked or have I just scanned into a lightning lane, or has it been 2 hours since I've last booked a lightning lane?
So one of the questions that we get asked probably the most is regarding the 120-minute rule. And that is like when that 120 minutes starts. So is it like, so in that example that I just explained, like booking Haunted Mansion right at 7, when can someone book their next lightning lane?
They can book. So the first time that you can use the 120-minute rule is 2 hours after the park opens. So even though that you've booked your first one at 7 a.m., your 2 hours does not start at 7 a.m.
Right.
Your 2 hours starts from when the park opens.
Yep.
Now, after that, it's all fair game. It goes back to that question of, has it been 2 hours since I booked my last lightning lane?
Yeah.
And that is kind of the rule throughout the whole rest of the day.
Yeah. And at the end of the day too, like this is probably the most confusing part about Genie Plus, but the app will tell you whether or not you can book one or not. And
if it's not time, it'll be like, not time yet.
Yeah. It will tell you. And I think it even has like a little countdown, like you can book your next lightning lane at this time or however many minutes from then or something. I think it says something like that, if I remember right.
I don't remember, but
so all of these you book all through the tip board, all on the app and everything.
So just to review, so your tip board, this is going to be your page in your My Disney Experience account that lists every single attraction in the park that you want to visit. It's going to have the current wait time. It's going to have when the next available return time or the next available lightning lane, that's the other way to think of that, is, and it will also have those individual attraction selections that can be purchased separately. All of that is going to be on your tip board. And again, to get to your tip board, it's the 3 little lines at the bottom right-hand corner of your My Disney Experience app. And then there will be a block that says tip board or go to my day. You can use either of those. They're kind of in the same place.
Right.
So that'll be how you do that. And something very important, you can only do each ride one time. You can ride every ride as many times as you want. That's not the biggie, but you can only book your lightning lane for each ride one time.
Yeah. If it's one of your favorite rides and you want to ride it time and time and time after again, you can book obviously your first time or whenever your lightning lane for that. But any other times that you want to ride, you do have to wait in the standby queue.
Yes. All right. So now that we've talked about Genie Plus a little bit, let's talk about individual attraction selections and kind of go into this just a little bit more. So an individual attraction selection is additional to Genie Plus. So like I said earlier, these are those top tier rides in each park that are not included with Genie Plus. You have to pay separately for them if you want to use the lightning lane. Again, if you don't want to use that and you don't want to pay for that, you can still ride these attractions except for one that we will talk about in a bit. But these are just if you want to skip those lines, because these are like the
Right.
most popular ride in each park. They're going to have the longest wait times.
Yep.
Currently, as of right now, when we are filming and doing this live stream, there is only one in each park. At Magic Kingdom, it is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Yep.
In Epcot, it is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. In Animal Kingdom, it is Flight of Passage, and in Hollywood Studios, it's Rise of the Resistance.
Now, I will say all four of those, these are going to be the longest waits that you're going to find across each of these parks. Obviously, Guardians is kind of a toss-up because we haven't really seen a standby queue for that yet. So, but
Which
more
again,
than
we're going to talk about that ride here in a bit.
yeah, but more than likely, if and when that attraction does go to a standby queue, it's probably just going to be a stupid, ridiculously long line. So more on that later. Once who knows, Disney might change all of this tomorrow, knowing our luck.
So with individual attraction selections, you can book up to 2 of these a day. But again, that same rule applies where you can only do each ride one time. So why would you be doing 2 a day if there's only one in each park? This is if you are park hopping. So let's say you're going to Magic Kingdom in the morning and then you're going to Epcot in the evening. If you want to do Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in the morning and then you want to do Cosmic Rewind in the afternoon, you can. That's where you get your 2 individual attraction sections. But if you're just at Magic Kingdom all day long, you'll only be able to book one because there's only one in that park.
Right.
Also, you do not have to have Genie Plus in order to purchase individual attraction selections. So since these are 2 separate things, you can totally forego buying Genie Plus if you don't really care about doing all of that. But if you just let's say you just want to get that lightning lane for Rise of the Resistance because that's a one ride that you really, really, really want to do and you don't want to wait in a line for it, but really you could care less about skipping the lines for anything else, you can just buy it for Rise of the Resistance. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, as you're adding up all these numbers, like, oh, this gets really expensive. Yes, it can. But just remember, you don't have to do all of these things. You can kind of pick and choose.
And not everyone in your party, this was another question we're going to talk more about in just a second, but you don't have to buy it for everybody in your party. So let's say, for example, Kayla and I are at the park and I really want to ride Guardians of the Galaxy, but Kayla doesn't. We can buy it just for me. We don't have to buy it for her and waste that extra money. Yeah. So you can buy it just for one person or whoever wants to go and ride.
And that same rule does apply for the normal Genie Plus as well.
Yep.
So let's say you have some little kiddos that are not going to be riding very many rides. You can opt to just buying Genie Plus for the adults, and then you can do rider swap, which again, I'll kind of dive more in a little bit later when we do our Q&A, how exactly that works. Something else that's really important to know about individual attraction selection. If you are staying at a Disney resort, you can book your individual attraction selections at 7 a.m. If you are not staying at a Disney resort, you have to wait until park open in order to book these. So this is actually a pretty big book when it comes to staying on a really big perk when it comes to staying on property, because sometimes for those really, really popular attractions, especially if they're brand new, like Cosmic Rewind, they could often be sold out by the time park opens because all of the resort guests have taken them. So something to consider when you are thinking about your accommodations for your Disney trip is definitely make sure you look at what the perks are for staying on property versus off property, because there are some of those that could be a pretty big game changer, like early park entry, which again, keep watching because we're going to talk about that later. We've got lots of stuff to discuss today.
So some other important things to note, Genie Plus is not available during early park entry or extended evening hours. If you happen to be a deluxe resort guest, you'll only find return times for Genie Plus during regular park hours. Even like right now, Not So Scary is happening. Later this year when Very Merry is happening, Genie Plus is not available for those parties.
So early park entry is where you can enter the theme parks up to 30 minutes early each day if you are a Disney resort guest. Extended evening hours happens on select nights. This is kind of similar where you get to stay in the parks for 2 hours after the park closes. Again, this is on select nights, and this is for deluxe resort guests only. So if you're planning on going to the parks at these times to take advantage, that's awesome. Just know that you're not going to be able to get a Genie Plus for those times.
Right.
The other thing you need to make sure, and we talked about this earlier, but I'm going to hit this in your guys' brains because it's so important. And this is what's going to be the game changer for your trip, is making sure you download the My Disney Experience app on your phone and you get in there and you play around and get familiar with where things are.
Yeah.
I promise it doesn't take very long. The app is pretty intuitive for the most part in trying to figure out where things are. But if you just take those few minutes to figure those things out before you get on your trip, you're not going to be stressed out when it's 7 a.m. and you're trying to buy Genie Plus and then you're trying to book your light lanes and you have no idea like what buttons you're supposed to push or where to go for that.
Yeah, nothing will stress you out more than at 7 a.m. and you're like, oh, I don't have any idea what I'm doing, and you're freaking out, and then bam, the ride you really wanted to ride, and that's the only day you're going to that park, and now you can't ride that ride. Yeah, like we've had scenarios like that happen for us when there was things glitching out
or
and
people weren't linked properly.
Yeah.
That's another really huge one, is making sure like you've done online check-in and you've done your friends and family list and making sure that everybody is linked. That is such a huge one, because if you don't have that set up correctly, you are SOL. And
and another big pro tip for Genie Plus is making sure that you have a payment method saved in your profile within the app, because that's just going to make things so much faster when it does come time to actually buying individual attraction selections and Genie Plus, because typing all that credit card information in, more than likely all those early return times are going to be gone, and you're going to get a later time, and then you're just not going to be able to really stack the lightning lanes like we really recommend. So, and we're going to talk about more about that stacking and things like that during our strategy part of this video, but that's a huge pro tip, making sure all that information is plugged into the app before you actually go on your trip.
Not only is that important for Genie Plus, but it is also important to have your credit card information on file and ready to go for when you are booking dining reservations, because that is another one that can be extremely difficult to get. And if you're spending those few extra seconds trying to type in your credit card information, that reservation is going to be gone. Speaking from experience, because I book, if in case you didn't know, I am a travel planner that specializes in Disney destinations. And so one of my services that I provide is that I do help with booking dining for a lot of my clients. And there have been several times where my clients have not had their credit card information plugged in properly. And we had a panic moment because it's very early in the morning and they're probably not awake and I'm freaking out trying to put in their credit card information. Just plan ahead. It's very easy to do. You just go in your settings. But again, you got to get in your app so that you can figure out how all this stuff works. Cool. So now that you kind of have hopefully a pretty good idea of what Genie Plus is and generally how it works, I am going to encourage you guys to make sure you check out our playlist. It is linked in the description. We have done some very thorough how does Genie Plus work videos. So make sure you go back and you watch those, because the more times you hear this information, it'll be a lot easier, I promise. But now let's talk some strategy. And first, we're going to talk about saving, like money saving tips with Genie Plus.
So the first one is that again, we said this earlier, you don't have to buy Genie Plus every day, and you don't have to buy every individual attraction selection for every single ride. It's kind of like an a la carte thing, for example, if you're just doing a half day park and you have a really important like dining reservation later that day and you're just doing a half day, maybe don't buy Genie Plus for that day. You can, but you don't have to. And same thing for say you're in Magic Kingdom that day and you have contemporary or California Grill that night. You don't have to buy the individual attraction selection for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. You can, but you don't feel like you have to. You can easily just kind of meander throughout the park and still have a magical time.
The best way I like to describe Genie Plus, a lot of people do get frustrated that it's too expensive or why do we have to pay for this now? And something to remember is that you can have a magical time with or without this system. It's kind of like buying a dessert party or a tour or any of those kind of extra add on things. They can definitely make your vacation more special and help you maximize your time, but they're not necessary to have a good time.
Right.
I will say, like during like peak season when the crowds are very large and lines are long, yes, this is going to be more beneficial
Yeah.
than times of year where the lines maybe aren't as long because crowds aren't as busy. That being said, there are parks that I would say are a better use of Genie Plus than others. Magic Kingdom being the first one because there are so many attractions in that park. You kind of get a really good bang for your buck because there are so many options. It's a lot easier. Rides are not going to fill up as quickly as some of the other parks. That's the only kind of downside with Genie Plus is that rides can book out and you may get later in the day and there's nothing else available for a ride. Magic Kingdom, this does happen later in the day, but it's going to happen like later than some of the other parks.
Right.
And you'll still have some options because I think
there's just a bigger pool to choose from.
Yeah, I think I as just like a reference, I think there's 28 attractions, I want to say, around in Magic Kingdom. And I think there's only like 11 in Animal Kingdom or something. It's something like that. Don't quote me on those exact numbers, but I know it's like somewhere around there. And so you can see how there's a much larger pool for Magic Kingdom. And then the other one I would say is a good one is Hollywood Studios because there are so many what they call e-ticket attractions or like really, really popular attractions that tend to have long lines. And so this one, because everything has long lines in this park, like insane, that one can also be a good one to save some time so that you can do more attractions.
Now, as far as the individual attraction selections that we recommend, it's going to be Rise of the Resistance and Guardians of the Galaxy. Especially with Guardians, that's really one of two ways that you can ride that ride right now. You can either buy that for everyone who wants to ride in your party, or you can wake up at 7 and hope to get a boarding group. But that's not always guaranteed. So if you are wanting a guarantee that you're going to ride that ride, honestly, just go ahead and bite the bullet, pay that little bit of extra money. That way you can be sure to secure your spot.
Or you can do both. You can do the virtual queue and you can do an individual attraction selection, and then you can ride it 2 times in a day.
You can, yep.
Which we'll talk about the strategy of how you can do that a little later. So Rise of the Resistance is the other one that we recommend. The reason being is that line consistently has very long lines, like 2, 3, sometimes 4-hour long lines. And it is a cool ride. Don't get me wrong. It is such a cool ride. But you are paying thousands of dollars to be at Disney. It is personally not worth it to stand in a 3-hour long line just to ride one attraction. There are so many other things you could be doing. And yes, it's a cool ride, but I just don't think that it's worth standing in line for 3 hours. So if you can rope drop it, great. Again, we'll explain what that means in a second. Or if you can buy that individual attraction selection, that is going to make your day a lot
And the
better.
other thing too about Rise of the Resistance is that it's such a technologically advanced ride that it breaks down a lot. And so if you're just banking on just waiting in the standby queue,
imagine standing in line for 2.5 hours and then the ride breaks down.
Yeah.
And you just wasted your entire day.
Yeah. Like you're going to be really bummed.
I won't do it.
Yeah.
I refuse.
And a good chunk of that queue is outside. There's fans and some shade, but it's still hot. It's not a fun line to wait in.
No.
If you have little ones in your party who aren't going to ride a lot, don't buy Genie Plus for them and instead just use Rider Swap.
So Rider Swap is something that you can do with Genie Plus or without. What that means, now you do have to have at least 2 adults in your party for this option to work. So the premise is that one adult is going to stay behind and take care of your little one, while the other adult is going to get in line for the ride and ride the attraction. You do need to let the cast members know that you're doing Rider Swap, because they'll kind of give you specific instructions for each ride, because each one's going to operate just slightly differently. But then basically once that adult has ridden the ride, they're going to swap, and that adult's then going to be taking care of the kiddo while the second one is going to ride the attraction. Now, the thing with this that's kind of cool is that you're not having to wait in that full queue twice. So if you're in the standby queue, they're going to pretty much just put you through that lightning lane so that you're not having, so if it's like an hour-long line, you're not waiting 2 hours.
Right.
to do it. You're just waiting the hour and then you go through the lightning lane for the second one. Now, if you're doing Genie Plus with this, it works exactly the same, except both adults will just go through the lightning lane.
Yep.
So if you do have little kids who either are not tall enough for the rides, or they're maybe not like a fan, it's a little too scary for them, you can absolutely use this. But again, if you do have like little ones that you know are not going to be riding a lot, it's probably not worth it for you to buy Genie Plus for them. But if you are still wanting to ride some of those bigger rides, it could be worth it to purchase it for you. All right. So hopefully those were some great money saving tips, because I know Genie Plus is expensive, but it could be a lot worse because there are other theme parks that charge a lot more for a similar type of system.
You guys drinking from the fire hose yet? Because man, this is good stuff.
Yes.
So now we're going to talk about tips to actually get a lightning lane and really try to make the best bang for your buck. So the biggest one is to keep refreshing, because a lot of people will cancel their lightning lane. Sometimes they'll miss their lightning lane and then it will reopen up on the app, or and so just keep refreshing, because certain things will just pop up. And say, for example, like Slinky Dog is probably one of the first ones to go. Keep refreshing, because if someone missed their reservation, it might pop up and you might be able to snag it. So
a lot of people will often talk about how one of the things they don't like about Genie Plus is that, by lunchtime, everything is gone. I disagree. It may seem that way, but you have to have a little bit of patience. And I heard someone talk about it this way, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. They compared Genie Plus to being like a slot machine. And so he always talks about how like you have to play the Genie Plus game. And so it's like you're refreshing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might take 30 seconds. Sometimes it may take like 5 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep refreshing, but you never know. Something could pop up that's like a really good one, or something that you were looking for. And it's because that you took those few minutes to just stop and do that.
Or even the return time you want, because say, for example, like if you're wanting a certain, let's say Slinky, and maybe you have a reservation for, I don't know, Sci-Fi Dine-In or something like that, but they're contradicting each other, or conflicting.
Overlapping.
Yeah, there we go. Let's say that happens. Keep refreshing, because an earlier time might pop up. You just never know. And so, if you guys are familiar with Molly from Mammoth Club, she calls it Fiddle Faddle. You can use that, steal that from her. But at the end of the day, all you have to do is just swipe down on the app and it'll refresh. And hopefully you'll get something good.
The other big thing is to have a plan or have a strategy. Something I like to always express, and this is a Disney World trip rule in general, not just Genie Plus, but really have in mind the things that are the most important to you and your family, not the things that everyone has said that you have to do this or you have to do that. You need to decide what is the most important things for you and your family, and focus on those most important things. If you can get all those done, amazing. You're going to have a great trip. If you get more stuff done than that, even better. Your trip's going to feel even more magical, but it's all about setting your expectations appropriately.
Right.
So if you have a plan with Genie Plus and you know, okay, these are the top like 2 or 3 rides that I really, really want to get, focus on those things first. And then anything after that is a bonus.
Yep.
But always, of course, be flexible.
And I think set your expectations accordingly too. Like, especially if you're going like right after say Christmas and in between New Year's or something like that, right around that busy park time, set your expectations accordingly, because lines are going to be long. Attractions are going to be hard to come across on Genie Plus because a lot of people are going to have it. And so just know that going into it.
Yeah, there's a very big difference between navigating Disney World during the busiest like Christmas week versus like right now when everyone's in school and there's not as many people in the parks. Those are very different scenarios. And so you need to kind of think about that when you are doing your planning.
Yeah.
Another thing is, if you can, I know this isn't always in your control, but if you can, try to book for as early of a time as possible for your return times. So if you're booking your 7 a.m. lightning lane, if you're able to, try and get one for as close to park open as you can or early in the day, because you're going to have the faster you're able to like get on those rides, the faster you're going to be able to book more. And so if you book it's 7 a.m. and you're booking your very first one, but your return time is not until 5 p.m., you have 2 hours of park time at the beginning of the day where, yes, you can totally be riding rides, but you're also missing out on 2 hours of being able to make lightning lane selections. So if you can try to do them earlier in the day, that is always best. Now, on the opposite end of that, now let's say that you're not planning on getting to the parks until later. You also don't want to waste your time with this either, because you can still use Genie Plus if you're planning on going in the evening. You just have to strategize a little bit differently. This is where the 120-minute rule can really come into play. Let's say that it's maybe your travel day and you're flying in and you're not planning on getting to the parks until after 2 p.m. You're still going to want to wake up at 7 a.m. and you're still going to want to book that first lightning lane. Just make sure that you try to get a time for when you know you'll be in the park.
Right.
Then you're not going to wait until 2 p.m. when you're in the park to book your next thing. You're going to wait, and 2 hours after park open, you're going to get on the app again. Even if you're sitting in the airport waiting for your next flight, you're going to get on the app again and book your next one. And you're going to keep doing this until you get to the park. And so hopefully you might have 3, 4, 5 Genie Plus selections stacked up for when you go to the park that evening, and you're still going to be able to really get the most out of a really short amount of time. So I see this mistake a lot where people will show up in the evening and then buy Genie Plus, and they're like, oh, well, why did I do that? There's nothing left. Because you did not take advantage of that whole morning opportunity of being able to book lightning lanes.
Yep. Now, in that example, probably a question that you're probably wondering, like a bunch of people that we talk to, is, let's say in that scenario, you're not getting to the park till 5 p.m. and you've stacked all these with the 120-minute rule. And let's say, for example, if your first lightning lane is at 5 p.m. and you scan in at 5 p.m., can you book another lightning lane once you scan into that 5 p.m. attraction?
Yes, I believe so.
I'm pretty sure you can.
I'm pretty positive that you can, because again, this is going back to, you have to ask yourself that question: did I just scan into a ride, or has it been 2 hours since I booked one?
Yep.
And I think that would qualify under the have I just scanned into a ride.
I'm pretty positive that you can.
Yeah.
We haven't done ourselves haven't done a whole lot of stacking like this.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do that scenario yet, but I know people who have.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure that you should be able to book one after that.
Like I said, at the end of the day, the 120-minute rule is probably the most confusing part. But again, check the app, just log in and see if you are able to. The app will tell you whether you can or not.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay, now probably the part that you guys have really been waiting for, because everyone asks me this. I get this question on like a daily basis. I'm not even kidding. What are our Genie Plus strategies for each park? And honestly, it's simpler than you would think. So let's start with Magic Kingdom.
And these are our
personal these are our personal what I would do, but these are also what I would recommend for like a general good strategy. This is not going to be a strategy that works for every single person, because like someone with young kids may prioritize something over like what we would prioritize, but generally this is what we would do. Our priority rides, so the rides that we are going to go for first, are going to be those attractions that tend to have the longest wait times that we know tend to have long wait times like most of the day. That's going to be Jungle Cruise, Peter Pan, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, or Splash Mountain. These are all kind of like the big rides in Magic Kingdom. And so any of those would be great ones to start with, just because you know you're immediately going to knock out at least a 30 minute to an hour long line.
Right.
Personally, we do Jungle Cruise. I would say generally we try to do Jungle Cruise first, because since that one, it has like a human element to it. Like the cast member is telling the jokes and driving the boat and stuff. Sometimes that one can get backed up a little bit.
And it's an all outdoor queue.
Yes.
There's no air conditioning. And so that it's a miserable one to wade into. Granted, it's covered, so you're not like, if it's raining, you're not going to get wet.
Yeah.
But you're still
like
in
the afternoon,
elements.
You're going to be looking at over an hour
easily
for that ride, especially with how popular it is now because of the new movie.
Yeah.
So personally, that's what we like to do. But if one of those other rides is more important for you and your family, those might be better options.
Yeah. And the nice thing about Jungle Cruise too is that it doesn't have a height requirement.
It doesn't have a height requirement, and it is ECV, well, wheelchair accessible. I don't think you can take your scooter on, but you can take a wheelchair on, which is good.
Oh, they do have those boats? Oh, I did not know that.
I just did all this research recently about this for a client, and so I just learned about all these things. So
that's good to know. But yeah, pick what's most important to you. Obviously, you know, if you have a little one that's not tall enough to ride Big Thunder,
maybe don't pick that one first.
Yeah. But the other thing too is, did we already talk about rope dropping and like what?
No.
Okay. Do we want to talk about that now?
Sure.
Okay. So rope dropping, and kind of along with that, early park entry. So with early park entry,
hold on. Let's I want to clarify.
Am I jumping the gun?
Just slightly. I want to clarify, because this is another thing that gets confusing. Rope drop and early park entry,
they're two different things.
They're two different things, but they're also the same thing. So early park entry is for resort guests when you get to enter the parks 30 minutes early. Rope drop is when you arrive to the park before park open. So this means either if you're an early park entry guest, before early park entry, or if you're a non-resort guest, before the normal park opening time.
Right.
The reason why I say before is because in order to actually rope drop, you need to be in the park for when the rides actually start going, in order to really take advantage of those short lines.
Right.
And that's why people rope drop, is so because there's not anybody in the park yet.
Yeah.
You can have a lot less
So
space.
For example, let's say Magic Kingdom is the park you're going to and you're a resort guest. You can get an early park entry at 8:30. You can rope drop at 9 o'clock, either as a resort guest or a non-resort guest. You can rope drop at 9 o'clock. As a resort guest, you can technically do both. And this is
okay.
Kind of.
I think you're getting confused. Slightly.
No.
Because you can rope drop. You rope drop, or rope drop is just the aspect. Like, I wouldn't say that rope drop is correlated with park opening, because it's park opening, but it's also, you can rope drop early park entry. So rope drop is just the action of getting there before you're allowed to ride a ride.
Well,
that's what rope drop is.
But most of the attractions will open like at park open.
early park entry.
No.
Yes. What are you talking about?
So what I'm saying is, so for example, during early park entry, only certain areas of the park will be open. So when we went in February, we rope dropped. We didn't do early park entry for Jungle Cruise because Jungle Cruise in Adventureland was not open during that extra 30 minutes of buffer time before the park opened.
Sure. Okay.
So as a resort guest in that scenario, you could maybe go do you could early park entry Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and then go after that, right after you get off, you could rope drop Jungle Cruise. So you can technically do both. That's what I was getting at.
Sure. Your verbiage is a little confusing to me, but
the people understand.
Hopefully. So Magic Kingdom. So what Mark Allen's trying to say is that in Magic Kingdom for early park entry, select areas of the park is open for early park entry. So that's going to be Tomorrowland and Fantasyland. So all of the attractions there are going to be open for early park entry. If you are doing early park entry, you're going to rope drop those.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
If you are a non-resort guest and you have to get there at park open when the whole park opens,
right,
that's when then you would be rope dropping the rest of the park.
Yeah.
Yes? Does that make sense now what
yes.
I was trying to say?
Yes.
But, I hope that's clear as mud for you guys.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think this is a great example of that it does pay to be a resort guest because you do have those 30 minutes. You can easily knock out a big ticket attraction before the non-resort guests come in. Or even
multiple. I have had people tell me that they have knocked out 3 to 5 attractions in those 30 minutes.
Yep.
That's insane because later in the day, the amount of time that it would take you to do those 3 to 5 attractions could be several hours.
Right.
Whereas you could get these done in 30 minutes. Like that I know that 30 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but I am telling you, if you're really trying to get a lot done, you have to take advantage of early park entry. So now that we've gone off on that tangent, going back to Genie Plus. So the individual attraction selection for this park is Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I personally do not recommend purchasing an individual attraction selection for this ride because it is such a short ride. It's cute, but like, I don't know. I personally cannot justify spending the money on that attraction.
If it's a must do, then do it.
Sure. But you can also prioritize this as a rope drop attraction, or you can ride it right before park close. Because here's another fun little pro tip is you can enter the queue for an attraction up to 1 minute before park close. So the bus lines at the end of the night get very busy. Yeah. And you will stand in line for the bus for probably 30 minutes to an hour. I know that sucks, but that's just reality. So instead, what you could do is stand in line for an hour at Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and then ride the attraction and then just waltz right onto the bus afterwards. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Yep.
And then that just saved you $15 or however much those are.
Yeah. So once we get all those more longer waits done, or obviously what's important to you, then really focus on all the extra stuff. So for us, it's Haunted Mansion, Pirates, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, and maybe even Small World.
Those are going to be the rides that are going to have like the second longest wait times. Like they're still pretty popular, but they're not going to be like as insane as some of those earlier listed attractions.
Yeah. And obviously, during the time, maybe you're waiting for that 120 minutes. Keep looking at the app to see if any of these are walk-ons. Mm-hmm. Go and do that if it's a walk-on. Knock that out.
Another, kind of tip with this is, let's say you just did Big Thunder Mountain and you are not really seeing any of those other big attractions until a little bit later, but you see Small World for like literally 5 minutes from now. Go ahead and get the Small World. Go get in line for Small World. And while you're in line, then go ahead and you can try and get one of those big attractions so that you're kind of sandwiching things in between so that you're not wasting a ton of time.
Yep. Yeah. And that's when it really does come to pay. That's when it really does pay to really keep refreshing and seeing what's available, because stuff will just randomly pop up like that. Mm-hmm. So
that's Magic Kingdom.
Next up is Epcot. And priority lightning lanes that we would do is Remy, or Ratatouille, Frozen, Soarin', and Test Track. Those are the big ones.
In that order, I would say. I think it depends on if you are staying at a Skyliner resort or not, and
Absolutely.
what entrance into the park you are doing. If you're staying at a Skyliner resort, I would not purchase a lightning lane for Remy, and I would instead get there for early park entry and rope drop that attraction. So Epcot, if you have not been in Epcot before, there is actually 2 entrances to this park. There's the main entrance at the front, and then at the very back of the park in World Showcase, there is the International Gateway. That is the entrance for Skyliner Resort guests, which it is right next to the France, like literally right next to the France Pavilion, which is where Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is. So if you can do that rope drop early park entry for Remy's, it's literally right there. And so you can knock that one out.
Yeah.
And then I would focus getting an individual attraction selection for Frozen. Now, vice versa, let's say you are not staying at one of those resorts and you're either you're just another resort guest coming from the front of the park, or you're a non-resort guest. I would personally maybe go for Remy's for your individual attraction selection. And then I would rope drop either Frozen.
Not individual attraction. Remy's not.
I'm sorry. Genie Plus selection. So
Yeah.
get Remy for your Genie Plus selection, and then either rope drop Frozen Ever After, or maybe Soarin' or Test Track if one of those is more important to you.
Yeah. I think Epcot can be a good one to do Genie Plus because a lot of them sometimes can get long waits.
I think it depends. It almost kind of depends on how busy the park is
It-
that day.
yeah.
Because Epcot, you can kind of take it or leave it, I think.
Yeah. Yep. And the other thing too is there's so much good food. There's so much festival stuff to
Mhm.
do. You don't have to do all the attractions. So, and Test Track has a single rider line. If you're fine with splitting up people in your party, do the single rider line, because a lot of
Mhm.
times it's usually a walk on. And Soarin' is also test tracking. Soarin' is also testing a single rider line. So that may or may not be available when you're there, but it may be something to at least check out.
And something to note with single rider line, you can still wait in line together. It's just riding the actual attraction. That's when you'll get split up.
Yep.
So Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind is the individual attraction selection for Epcot. There are 2 ways, and 2 ways only, to ride this attraction as of today, right now. That is the virtual queue. This is the free option. You will still book this in your Disney Experience or My Disney Experience app. You'll still book it through there. You'll book this at, I'll talk about that in a second, but there's a few different times during the day that you can book these. So this is the free one. Something to know with the virtual queue is that you will still have to wait in a line. The virtual queue is not a lightning lane. It is a normal line. You just have to book your time to be in that line. I know it's silly, but they do it with all the new attractions now. So that's way number 1. Way number 2 is with an individual attraction selection. So you can purchase this. That is where you get to skip the line. So for the virtual queue, there are 3 times during the day that these open up. The first is at 7 a.m. You do not have to be in the park. The park's not even open at 7 a.m. But you do not have to be in the park to book your virtual queue starting then. If you are not able to snag one, then the next time that you can try is at 1 p.m. Now, for that one, you do have to be in the park.
Mhm.
So if you're planning on park hopping to Epcot, you're kind of SOL and you are not going to be able to do a virtual queue. You'll have to do an individual lightning lane.
Right.
Because that's the other caveat with the virtual queue, is that you have to have a park pass reservation for Epcot, which that's a whole other topic. If you got questions about park pass reservations, let us know in the comments. We'll talk about that another day.
Yep.
But those are the 2 main ways. The third way is only available to Disney Deluxe Resort guests, and this is for the extended evening hours. So this opens up at 6 p.m. However, something to note is that this is only on nights that extended evening hours are available. As of right now, I have only really been seeing that they do extended evening hours for Epcot like once a week. So that's important to make sure that
Yeah.
you're checking in the app to see when those nights are so that you are being able to take advantage of that. But if you're not able to do anything for during the day, that might be a good option. And the one with that particular instance is that you do not have to be in the park for that 6 p.m. one. And I don't think that you have to have a park pass reservation for that either. So if you are staying at a deluxe resort and you're park hopping to Epcot, that can also be an option for you. So yeah, that's how you ride Cosmic Rewind. It's a little confusing, but personally, that's just why we say try and buy the individual attraction selection if you can, because it's a little less stressful.
So after all that, all the big ticket, again, much like Magic Kingdom, anything else is just extra. You know, if you can do it, great. And like we said with Magic Kingdom, you know, keep refreshing the app. If something pops up, go ahead and snag it for a time that's close to the time that it currently is. Obviously, if it's a low wait, go ride it, knock it out. So these are going to be like Spaceship Earth, Mission Space, maybe even Living with the Land, Figment. And with some of these, you more than likely probably won't even have to book a lightning lane for it. But if it's an extremely busy day,
I mean, you never know.
You never know.
We went in February, and the day that we used Genie Plus, Living with the Land was an hour-long wait, which never happens. Like, that's like super weird for that particular ride.
Right.
But boy, howdy, we were glad that we had Genie Plus that day, because then we didn't have to stand in line for an hour. So you know, just play that part by ear.
Overall, again, this park could be a skip for Genie Plus. Again, depending on crowds, what those are going to look like. And obviously for this park, I think it is really...
It's more important to have a good rope drop strategy for this park than it is to have Genie Plus.
Exactly.
If you can have a good rope drop strategy, you can knock out quite a bit of stuff early in the morning to where you may not need Genie Plus.
Right.
So...
All right. So next up is Hollywood Studios.
Yes. So this is the other one. This is probably the hardest park to do Genie Plus, but it's also, I think, one of the most necessary parks to do Genie Plus.
I would 100% agree.
Because there are almost every attraction in this park is like a big attraction, like a coaster type thing or like a high thrill ride. And so they're very popular, and almost all of them have long lines.
There's not very many walk-on attractions here.
No. And so because of that, I think Genie Plus is a huge time saver, especially because there's also a lot of shows in this park that take up a lot of time. So if you are to pick a park, if you have to pick one park, this might be one of my one parks to do it. So the two rides, there's actually really only two rides that I would suggest going for first. Just because these are the hardest ones to get. That's Slinky Dog and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. I would say these are the most popular, hard to get.
Yeah. Ones. And if you end up not being able to get one, especially for Smuggler's Run, Millennium Falcon, again, this has a single rider line. So that can be an option to be able to ride it. Now, the only thing with the single rider line is here, you're not going to really probably get to select what position you are, whether you want pilot, engineer, gunner, whatever. You're basically just going to get the luck of the draw.
So Millennium Falcon it's kind of like a, I don't know, virtual.
It's like a flight simulator. You're basically flying.
That's the word.
you're flying the Millennium Falcon.
So there's different positions. There's 6 different ones, and so that's what he means by if you are in the in the single rider line, you don't get to pick what position you're in.
Yeah.
Now, if you're someone who knows a thing or two about Disney, you might be like, well, why didn't you do Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway? That's because that is the easiest ride to rope drop in any of the theme parks, in my opinion, because it is right at the front of the park. We've done this every single time, and I think the longest that we waited for a rope drop was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was this is the best rope drop ride, in my opinion. And so I would not waste I would not waste your first lightning lane on
Right,
Mickey
right.
and Minnie's, because you could just rope drop that instead.
Obviously, like we've said with the past 2 parks that we just talked about, if something pops up and you want to ride it again, great, you can. But yeah, don't waste your early ones on this, is kind of what she's saying.
Now, there's a little bit of a caveat with this, and that is when it comes to Rise of the Resistance. So Rise of the Resistance is the individual attraction selection for Hollywood Studios. And like I talked about earlier, this ride has extremely long lines all day. And so I would really, really highly recommend purchasing an individual attraction selection for this ride if it is a priority for you. If you do not, then I would say that the best time to ride this ride is for rope drop at early park entry. The best time to do it without an individual lightning lane is for early park entry. But if you are not able to do early park entry and you have to do normal rope drop, the line will be a little bit longer, but that's probably still going to be a better time to ride than later in the day.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, personally, I don't think that I would do regular park opening and go straight to Rise, because more than likely it could be down. And already by that point, everyone who did early park entry is already going straight to Rise.
Right.
So by the time you get there,
you're
probably not going to save. You're probably not going to save any time. So
that's kind of where I say just bite the bullet. If you have to pick one ride to do it, if you have to pick one ride to do the individual attraction selection, this is the one that I would do.
At the end of the day, you can, at Disney, you can
save
time or save money.
You cannot do both.
Yeah, you can. And so you really have to pick and choose. So
yes.
So next up, after we've done like Slinky and Smuggler's Run, we would probably try to snag Tower of Terror. I would try to snag Tower of Terror. Kayla wouldn't. Rock and Roller Coaster, Toy Story Mania, and then any others, much like the other parks. If something comes up, go ahead and get it. If something's a low wait, go wait in the standby queue.
Yeah, those 3 are also going to have very long lines. Now, when I say long, I would say from what I have seen, those rides can typically have anywhere from around like a 40 to hour and a half long wait. I would say is pretty normal for those rides.
Yep.
Which is pretty long.
And Rock and Roller Coaster is your single rider line here at Hollywood Studios. Now, this one is not, besides, I guess there's at Hollywood Studios, the single rider option is Smuggler's Run and Rock and Roller Coaster.
Rock and Roller Coaster does not.
It's not not always a great choice.
Usually it's not faster. So honestly, I would only do single rider if you actually are a single rider. If you're with your family, you might as well just stay on the regular line, because it's probably going to take you the same amount of time. Yep. Yeah, so that's what I would do. And then kind of in between rides and lightning lanes and things, I would fill in with those shows.
Yeah. There's so many good shows.
Really good shows in Hollywood Studios. And a tip with these shows is that you can book lightning lanes for the shows. However, you still want to get there early, because if you don't get there early, you're not like getting a lightning lane doesn't mean that you get a good seat. It just means that you aren't having to wait in like a line of people. You just get to go in faster. And so we made this mistake which this is for Animal Kingdom, not Hollywood Studios, but we did a lightning lane for Lion King. And we got there like a couple minutes before the show started, and we sat in the very back. Like, these seats were terrible, and I was so mad.
Yeah.
Because it was super hot back there, and you like couldn't see anything. And so I was like, okay, well, good to know that if you do a lightning lane, you still need to try and get there like at the beginning time of your lightning lane, not the end time. So that you can still get a good seat.
Yeah. So speaking of Animal Kingdom, last but not least, our strategy here, we would honestly prioritize Navi River Journey and Kilimanjaro Safaris.
Yes.
Especially Kilimanjaro, the line here can be really unpredictable, because if there is a tower of giraffes in the middle of the road, or
Yes.
along, I don't know, the cow thing with the big horns. I forget what they're called.
I don't know, but they're
Standing
just,
in the
like,
road.
the
Those
rhinos.
are
Yeah,
yeah.
lot, like the animals are unpredictable.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
And this line is hot and stagnant air. Like it's a very warm cue.
Yeah, it's covered, so if it's raining, you're not going to get wet. But yeah, there's no air conditioning, so it can be a very, very, very long line. So not a great one to wade into.
So if you can snag those first, that Navi River is also a really great option because that does have a long line.
And it's a really short ride.
I would say I don't think it's skippable, but a lot of people think that ride is skippable just because it's a boat ride.
Right.
I think it's not because I think it's super cool.
It's beautiful.
Anyways,
so
definitely start with
individual attraction selection. We and Flight of Passage, I do honestly recommend purchasing this one if it's a big one that's super important for you to ride.
Yeah.
But if you do want to save money, either rope drop it or ride it right before park close, get in that line.
Yeah. And the benefit to being in the standby queue versus the lightning lane is that the queue is super cool.
It's one of the best queues in Disney World.
So back when Disney had Fast Pass, we would always book a Fast Pass for Flight of Passage. And we had never been through the queue until they got rid of Fast Pass. And then we did the queue for the first time. And I was like,
we've been missing this the entire time.
Missing out because this is a really cool queue, which I know it sounds really weird to say, but it's kind of one of those things you have to experience to understand. So that is kind of the only downside of doing the lightning lane for this ride. And that's why I think this is kind of one of those you can take it or leave it. It can definitely be beneficial and save you some time because this ride can get long. But also, if you stand in a long line for this one, it's a pretty cool line to stand in. So, now, I would definitely say if you're not buying an individual attraction selection, though, I would rope drop Flight of Passage. If you do have an individual attraction selection, I would say if you can then you will want to either rope drop Navi River Journey or Kilimanjaro Safari. Whichever one you didn't get, you'll want to rope drop the other one. That's what I would do. Yeah,
100%. Because those are going to have the longest wait. Now,
or you can go ride Expedition Everest like 6 times because no one goes over there first thing in the morning.
Yeah, which a lot of people very early in the morning are going to go straight to Pandora and knock those out.
Yes.
Everest can kind of be a weird, like,
personally, I hardly see super long lines for that ride. Like, I feel like the longest line I've seen there is like an hour, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it does get longer, but I don't know.
And it's a pretty cool queue to wade into. There's a lot of artifacts and things like that that the Imagineers have brought in. And it's a kind of a cool one to wade into. A lot of it's not air conditioned. So, but
bring your personal fans, man.
Yes. And Dinosaur, if it comes up, great. But I don't think it's not one that I would recommend.
Yeah, and then
going for right away.
The only other ride in Animal Kingdom is Cali River Rapids, which if you like water rides, like there you go. But I don't even think that one gets long lines either.
Yeah.
So overall, I would say if you were to skip a park if you were to skip Genie Plus for a park, Animal Kingdom would be the one that I would skip because there's just so much there to do that you don't need Genie Plus for. Like, you can easily get everything done in a day.
And the shows too. Obviously, if one of those come up and that's really something that you want to do, by all means, great. But honestly, you can just show up early and get as good, if not a better seat than you would probably get with a lightning lane anyway. So, all right. Well, that wraps up our strategy. So, what we are going to do now is we do already have some questions that you guys have submitted to us. But now go ahead and we'll keep an eye on the chat now and really watch for your questions coming in. But we're going to go ahead and answer some of your pre-given questions that you have had. So first up, our first question, how early should I arrive for rope drop?
I tell my clients that you should arrive, if you can, 45 minutes to an hour before you're supposed to enter the park. I know that sounds outrageous, but here's the thing. You are getting there before everybody else, which means you're going to be at the front of the line, which means you're going to have the least amount of wait time for an attraction that you're rope dropping for. And this is the case for both early park entry and normal rope drop.
Well, and the other thing too, with early park entry, they typically, the times that we have done early park entry, they've opened before scheduled early park entry.
That's super important to know because you can get in a line before. So let's say you're doing early park entry. I think we did a video for Hollywood Studios. You should go find that video and pop that link in the chat.
Okay.
So we did Hollywood Studios and I think early park entry was at 8:30. They started letting guests in around like 8:15 to go stand in line. So we were already in line for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway by like 8:17 or something like that. So all these people who are getting there at 8:30 when early park entry thinking that they're getting here like beforehand, they're not. They've already like missed the gun because everybody else is already in line. And so that's where it is very important to basically just get to the park as early as possible.
Right.
And here's the thing. If you're not a morning person, I'm not a morning person, but I am when I go to Disney because you can always leave in the afternoon when it's hot and the most crowded and go take a nap.
Yeah.
Because you've already done everything because you took advantage of those earlier times.
Yep. I think at the end of the day, a generic answer here is as early as you can.
Yeah.
Because it really does pay to get there as early as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Way back in the day, we've been literally the first people into Hollywood Studios.
Oh, I love
and
that
we
feeling.
were able to knock out so many things. Mm-hmm. So the earliest you can is what I recommend. Mm-hmm. Next question. How long do lightning lanes take?
So
lightning lane lines. That's hard to say.
So like we talked about earlier, there are two lines. There's the standby queue and the lightning lane queue. Your standby queue is your normal line. This is going to be your longer line that you're going to wait in. The lightning lane is your fast line. So there may still sometimes be a wait for these rides. But I would say typically for most of the time, it's either going to be a walk-on or you're going to wait maybe like 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. The only times that it might be longer than that is if an attraction goes down and you had a lightning lane during that time, but the ride went down, so you can't use that. When the ride comes back up, everybody who had lightning lanes for that like rushes to the ride.
Right.
Even though they can technically come back anytime if that happens, but everybody rushes to the ride. And so usually at that point, the lines can get a little longer.
Yeah.
I can't say how long because it just depends on the ride, but generally I wouldn't expect to wait more than like 15 minutes or so.
Yeah. Next up, what do I do if I have issues with Genie Plus?
You want to answer that one?
Actually, I'm going to let you answer that. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. Where are you going?
Downstairs real quick.
Okay, bye. Oh, I think our robot vacuum goes off here in just a second. Yeah, it does. He's going to go turn that off. Anyways, so if you have issues with Genie Plus, you immediately need to go to guest services. Because if you are wasting time trying to figure it out yourself, you are wasting time and you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get mad. It's going to ruin your vacation. So as soon as you're having problems, go find a cast member, go find guest services. They are all trained to be able to help you navigate the system and fix it and glitch it. We made the mistake. We went to Magic Kingdom and we had some weird glitchy thing happen because of just a weird thing with my tickets and stuff. And we were trying to figure it out and we wasted like the whole day. We were just like, forget it. We're just not going to do it. And so we went to guest services like way later in the day. And they're like, well, like we can try it again. And I was like, well, we're leaving. So and it wasn't a big deal. And it was actually a really easy fix once we figured out what the problem was.
Which kind of segues into this next question. can I get a refund if I'm unhappy with the service if it's glitching?
This really depends. And I'm not going to tell you yes or no because it is a case-by-case scenario.
Right.
I will say, like, in that particular situation, we were very kind to the cast member and they totally understood that it wasn't necessarily our fault. It was totally a glitch with the system. And so we were able to get a refund in that particular circumstance. However, that is not always going to be the case. So, for example, let's say a ride goes down for your individual attraction selection and you were not able to ride that attraction. They're most likely not going to give you a refund, just because that is technically in their like terms and conditions kind of thing. So like I said, I can't really say yes or no. You just need to make sure to go talk to guest services, explain your situation, be very kind, don't be grumpy and mean. Because if you're grumpy and mean, then it's an immediate no. But if you're kind, then they will definitely try and see what they can do to make it right.
Right. So next one here, we're going to do some speed round on some of these because
Mark Allen says the camera's getting mad.
The camera's getting mad, I think. But we've also been at this for well over an hour, so we want to be respectful of your time too. So can I pick my time for Genie Plus selections? No. With a caveat.
It's the next available time. That's what it is. So,
yeah. But if it's not a time you like what we said a million times, just refresh. Now with individual attraction selections, you can. So
yes. If you have a child not tall enough for a ride, do I need to unselect them when making Genie Plus selections? So let's say that you did purchase Genie Plus for everybody in your party that day, but you have a little kid and they're not able to ride Expedition Everest. When you are booking your Lightning Lane for Expedition Everest, it is going to ask who all in your party is wanting to ride. It'll automatically have everyone selected. You do need to unselect the person that will not be using that Lightning Lane. The reason why is because when everyone else goes to scan in for that attraction and then you're getting ready to book your next one, they're not going to let you book for the person that hasn't yet gone through that queue line. So just make sure you pay attention during that step.
Next up, is it $15 for every ride or for all the rides?
So it's $15 per person per day for over 40 attractions. So across all the parks. So basically it is going to include all of the rides and shows and attractions that qualify for Genie Plus, is all going to be included in that $15 per person per day. Individual attraction selections are the only ones that are extra.
Yep. Which the price on those will vary.
I would say it's usually between $7 to like $17, I think.
Are you able to make Genie Plus selections for people you added to your family and friends list or just people you manage? For example, you have multiple families traveling together.
Yes. So this is where it's super important to make sure that your friends and family are all linked properly in your My Disney Experience account. So what that means when I say linked properly, it means that when you have all those people linked in your account, they need to also have a ticket associated with them. So this can sometimes get hairy if you have like another family that you're traveling with and you like create a profile for them in your account, but they have their own My Disney Experience account. Those are not the same linked thing. Like you need to make sure if they have their own account, you do it via like email. I know that makes no sense, but if you go in your friends and family list, it tells you like the different options. Anytime that you can do it via email, that's the best. You really only want to do the like manage your own profile if it's like a child that can't do that.
Right.
So, yes.
Do I have to be in the park at 7 a.m. to book my first Lightning Lane? No.
None of the parks are open at 7 a.m.
Except maybe Animal Kingdom during a certain time of the year.
Animal Kingdom, the earliest that they open is 8 a.m.
Really? I thought they've opened at 7 before.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure the earliest that they open is 8 a.m. because all of the other parks open at like 9.
Okay. Anyway, does Genie Plus drain your phone battery a lot?
Yes. You need to make sure you have a portable charger with you at all times. My favorite are fuel rods.
Yep. We've done a bunch of Instagram posts and reels and stuff about those.
Basically, you can buy these in the parks, or you could just buy them on Amazon for cheaper.
Yep.
They are little like rod things. Oh gosh, let's see if I can get it. They look like this. This is a fuel rod.
When you first purchase it, it'll come in that clear tube and everything and have all your adapters.
Has all your little thingy things. But basically, there are stations all around the theme parks that you can, once this is dead, you just like pop it in and a new one pops out and it's free. And it's great. It's like the best thing ever, because then you never have to remember to charge your stuff. So, yes. Now, along with that is the next question. No, that's not the one.
Oh, well, let's answer this one.
Okay. Anyways, do you have to have a magic band if you purchase Genie Plus? No. You can just use your park ticket or your phone. But I will be honest, it makes it a lot more convenient if you have a magic band.
It does, because it's hands-free. You don't have to mess with it, risking really losing your park ticket. You can do it with your phone, but you don't have to like get anything. You can just, and you're good.
Yep.
What was the question you were going to ask?
Will I be on my phone all day? Will I really be on my phone all day? No, you won't. Like, I know it's okay. Sorry, that sounded really snarky. No, a lot of people think that they're going to be on their phone like way too, like just all day. You really won't. It takes, on average, you're going to be on your phone for like 30 seconds to book your next lightning lane. And then that's it. And then you're not going to book your next one until like the next time you do it. So I know it sounds like you're just going to constantly be on your phone. You really are not. All the things that you do on there are just to help you. They're tools. You don't have to use them. But I promise you're not going to be on your phone as much as you think.
You can have no plan for any of these parks and still have a grand old time.
Mm-hmm.
You can just show up.
You won't get as much done, for sure. But you can still have a great time.
Yeah. Let's see. This was our next question. Is rope drop different than early park entry? We kind of talked about this earlier.
Basically, yes and no. So early park entry is where you can enter the theme parks 30 minutes early, but rope drop is the physical action of getting there before the park opens, before early park entry, or before normal park open. That's the quick answer to that. So if you are staying off property, can you rope drop if you're staying off property? Technically, yes. You will just not be able to do the early park entry. So again, this is where it's really important to try and get to the parks at least 45 minutes to an hour early, like before park open, so that you can be as close to the front of the line as possible.
Yep.
All right. How many lightning lanes can you get each day? Honestly, this really depends on how good of a strategy you have. Technically, you can get one for every single ride. If you really wanted to, you could get one for every single ride. It takes some really hefty planning to be able to do so, but it is possible. I have seen many videos of people doing it. But I would say realistically, Disney puts on there that you should expect to get 3. If you're only getting 3, you're probably doing it wrong. I would say you can usually get at least 5 or so, more so if you have a pretty solid plan.
Right. Yep. Let's go to the chat because there was some great questions in there. Let's see. This was kind of a fun question. Charlie, hopefully you are still here joining us. Why did they establish Genie Plus? So Genie Plus started in
last year.
Yeah, it was almost a year ago. Was it August? I think August or September last year. But
no, it was after the 50th. It was like November or December.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, anyway, almost a year. But basically, Genie Plus replaced the Fast Pass system. Once the parks closed and then reopened, Fast Pass did not come back, which was the free system. So you didn't have to pay that $15, which unfortunately upsets a lot of people. But
to be really frank about this, because I have very strong feelings about it, Disney has to stay competitive with other theme parks that are around them. And other theme parks offer a similar service, and they charge a way higher price for their service than Disney does. And I will say other parks probably have like a better version of this service, in my opinion, but that's a whole other thing. But basically, like, a lot of people are upset that you have to pay for it, but a lot of people also don't realize, like, $15 is a very, very small fraction compared to the other theme parks that can charge upward of $200 for the same type of service. So the biggest reason is really, I mean, Disney's just trying to up their revenue because they're a business. And I know people don't like that, but like literally that's what they're there for, is to make money. So this is a way for them to kind of be on par with other similar resort or similar parks. But also helping with their revenue.
So the next question we had in the chat was from Carol, who wanted to know, if you book a pass for only part of your group, then can you book a different pass for the other people at the same time, or do you have to wait for your first group to ride?
You can absolutely book them for both groups of people. So let's say you have 3 people that want to go ride this ride and 3 people that want to go ride this other ride. You can absolutely book those for the same thing. But again, you just really want to make sure that when you're booking those, that you select the correct people, because if you select somebody that's not riding that ride, it won't let you do it until you scan. Like, they won't let you book another.
You can't have overlapping people.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you can absolutely do that.
Carol, let us know if that, hopefully that is clear for you there. Next, we're going to go to Lisa. Can you still purchase Genie Plus at 12:01 a.m. if you're off resort?
Yes, this can be anybody. Anybody can purchase at 12:01. So they have technically changed their verbiage to where it insinuates that there's a possibility that Genie Plus could potentially sell out. I don't think that this has actually happened yet. But personally,
we've not heard of it happening.
We haven't heard of it happening, but personally, I think it is a good idea to go ahead and get on there at midnight if you can, just so it's one less step for you to do in the morning, just in case there's like some weird glitching.
And another thing is that if you're off resort, keep in mind you can't book an individual attraction selection until park open.
Right. But you can still, if you're doing Genie Plus, you can still purchase Genie Plus at midnight, and you can still book your first lightning lane at 7 a.m.
Yep. You just have to wait till park open to get that individual attraction selection. So you're probably just not going to have as good of a time selection. Okay, good, Carol. I'm glad that answered your question there.
Yep.
Lisa had another part to that. Also, just to be sure, if you're off resort, you can't purchase. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't actually, I didn't read far enough in advance. So hopefully that answered your question there, Lisa. So,
cool.
Let us know too, if you have more comments, or questions. We've got just a couple more, questions to go here. And then we'll probably, wrap it up. So, this is probably going to be your last chance to answer any, get your questions answered that you might have about Genie Plus. Obviously, if you're watching this on the replay, and you have specific questions, comment on here, send us a message on Instagram, or anything like that, and we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Our camera might die, so if it dies, I'm sorry. Anyways, can I use Genie Plus if I'm park hopping? Yes, you absolutely can. So on the tip board, there's a function where you can basically select. It's automatically going to show up with the park options that you have a park pass reservation for that day. But if you're park hopping to another park, there's like a little tab that you click on that says like change park or something like that. You'll click on that and go to the other park. That's where you will book your lightning lanes for those. It will automatically, if you're trying to book a lightning lane for one of those, it will automatically, the earliest time that you can possibly get is 2 p.m. when park hopping hours start. So let's say you're wanting to do that like stacking thing that we talked about earlier, and you're starting your day at Magic Kingdom and you're hopping to Hollywood Studios. If you're doing the stacking thing for Hollywood Studios, the earliest time that you're going to be able to get is 2 p.m. So that's how that works.
And that is a new rule.
No, that's the same rule.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Can I log into the same account on 2 phones, aka like one person booking a lightning lane while the other person books an individual attraction selection? This is primarily going to be for like that 7 a.m. time. And yes, you absolutely can.
The other option too is, and Kayla and I have done this is that because we're linked to each other's accounts, I can select something for Kayla, she can select something for me.
Yeah.
So during the times at 7 a.m. when you're going for that boarding group, I might be the one to go for that, or maybe it's something that we really, really like, say for Guardians, for example, we really want to get that boarding group, and we want to try to avoid having to pay for the individual attraction selection. What you can do at 7 a.m. is you both be on the app and hit join, and whoever gets it first, great. And then right after that, go for any individual attraction selections you want if you're a resort guest, or your first lightning lane. So you can do all of that. But her and I can both be on the same app or on the app at the same time, not logged into each other's accounts. Hopefully this makes sense, and really select who wants to do what.
But if you do only have one account, let's say like you have the account and your husband is going, but your husband doesn't have their own account, you just have like the person that they manage, they could still download the app and log into your account and do it that way. And you can also do this with dining reservations. Same idea.
Yeah.
So
hopefully that was helpful. And hopefully this clears things up for Genie Plus. I know that it can be a very confusing system until you kind of take those training wheels off and get used to it. But once you get the hang of it and figure it out, and because there's kind of some weird quirks with it, especially with that 120-minute rule. But
I think the biggest thing to remember is to pick the things that are the most important for you and your family. For you and your family, not the things that people have told you is important, or the things you have to do. You have to do this, you have to do that. Pick what is important to you and your family and focus on doing those. Focus those as the main purpose of your itinerary, and get through that. After that, whatever else you have time to do is great. And that is 100%. Going to set your expectations appropriately to where you're not going to be disappointed because you tried to cram too much.
And be prepared. Get to learn the app, get familiarized with it, come up with a plan, ask your family or party, whoever you're going to Disney with, see what is a priority for them. If they don't know, maybe show them some videos of different rides and attractions, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there is guest experience teams throughout the park. You can go to Magic Kingdom, go to City Hall, and that guest experience team, and the little blue tents that are throughout the park, ask them.
Pro tip, those blue tents are going to have shorter lines than guest services.
Yeah, they will. But they're there to help you if you have questions. They're honestly almost experts when it comes to Genie Plus and how it works. Obviously, if it's not working for you, be nice, be friendly, be respectful. Don't be a jerk or a Karen about it. But at the end of the day, they're there to help you. They want to make your time magical. So.
And my final plug before we sign off, just as a reminder, I am a travel consultant with Goofy Getaways. That is the agency that I am affiliated with. I can help you book your trip. So if you found this helpful, just imagine how much more helpful I could be when we're actually booking and planning your trip together. So it's totally free to do that, which is awesome. If you want to know more information, there is stuff about that in the description box, or you can message me, whatever. We'll talk. We'll do the thing. So we hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, and we hope to do this more. So if you have other topics that you would like us to cover more in depth, let us know in the comments. But that's it. That's all we have for you guys today. Now go create your ever after.